I was only 13 when he first snuck into my house while my mom was away, and from that moment on, I lived through the most terrifying days of my life. Even now, at 80 years old, I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, haunted by nightmares from those hellish times. If my story speaks to you, please like, comment, and subscribe, because children like the girl I once was deserve to be heard, to be believed, and above all, to be protected. Everything began on that fateful afternoon. After what felt like forever, Mom finally came back from New York 2 days earlier than she said she would. I think she missed me. I was brushing my doll's hair when I heard someone call out her name from outside. Mrs. Rosa, our sweet old neighbor, who always wore scarves, even when it wasn't cold enough. She had her arms full of groceries and that kind of soft smile that made you feel safe. "Nancy, you're back. It's been ages," Mrs. Rosa said, standing at the gate wrapped up in a thick-knit scarf like always. "Yeah," Mom said, wheeling her suitcase behind her. "I wanted to surprise Maya." Mrs. Rosa's smile faded just a little. "Maya's been different lately. Doesn't play outside like she used to. I wish I could have told Mom why. I really did, but I was scared." Mrs. Rosa went on. "I saw her once with someone, a man. I tried to say hi, but Maya looked so scared and just ran back inside." Mom stiffened. "Who was it, Mrs. Rosa?" "I'm not sure. Just saw them talking near the gate." Mom gave a polite nod, her face tight with worry. "Thanks, ma'am. I'll head inside now." I don't know how much of that conversation I heard through the crack in the window, but it made my stomach twist. I heard the keys jingle downstairs, the soft wheeling of her suitcase, then the click of the door. Our place, apartment 307, still smelled like her perfume, but something must have felt wrong to her. I could tell from the way her footsteps paused. The living room lights were still glowing, and there were whispers, soft, low ones, from upstairs. Then a man's voice said something that made my insides freeze. "This is our little secret. Don't tell your mom, okay?" I didn't know what to do. My voice came out all broken. "I don't know. I don't want to." And then she was there. Her steps thundered up the stairs. I heard the door fly open. She saw me sitting stiff as a statue on my bed, and Andrew from next door, the one who used to smile too much. He was right next to me, like he belonged there. He turned around real calm, like nothing was wrong. But Mom's face cracked wide open with fear and fury. "Andrew, what the hell are you doing in my daughter's room?" He stayed sitting. "Relax, Nancy. I'm just visiting Maya." "Do you think I'm stupid?" she shouted, and in one quick motion, she scooped me into her arms. My whole body was shaking, but her hug was like armor. I clung to her like I was drowning, and she was the only thing keeping me from slipping under. Andrew stood slowly, arms folded. "Don't overreact. I just wanted to talk to her. We get along. Get out of my house." "Right now," Mom screamed. He didn't even flinch, just stared, his voice low and creepy. "You're overthinking. I care about her, Nancy. Not another word. Out." He narrowed his eyes, a half smile creeping across his lips. "You should watch what you say. Anger makes people do stupid things." Even I could feel the tension. It was thick and choking, but Mom didn't budge. She stood like a wall between him and me. "You're threatening me in my own house," she said. Andrew shrugged like he didn't care. He turned to go, but before walking out, he glanced back at me. I didn't understand his look. It wasn't angry. It wasn't sad. It was something else. I pressed tighter into Mom. The door closed. Finally. But I couldn't stop shaking. Mom crouched down and took my face in her hands. "Maya, baby." What happened? I couldn't speak. The tears just fell. "Nothing, Mom." Really, she didn't believe me. But she didn't push. She just held me. "I'm here," she whispered, her voice like a warm blanket. "I'll protect you. Always." I cried into her shoulder until I couldn't cry anymore. When I fell asleep, I knew she was still there sitting beside me. Later, when the night wrapped around our home, I woke up and saw her downstairs on the couch, staring at her phone like it held answers. Her fingers hovered over the screen, then tapped out a number. James, one of her old friends. He was a cop. "Nancy," he said, voice groggy. "It's late. What's going on?" I remember the way Mom held the phone, her fingers shaking a little, even though she tried to hide it from me. Her voice was low but tense, like she was holding back a storm. "James, I need your help." His voice came through the phone, soft but alert. "What's going on? Are you okay?" "I think my daughter's in danger," she said, almost whispering, "and I believe Andrew's behind it." There was a pause. I could almost feel it through the walls. "Andrew, that guy who lives down the hall?" "Yes. Do you have any proof?" "Not yet," she answered, her voice heavy with something I couldn't name at the time. "But something about this feels very wrong." James didn't hesitate. "All right, I'll check into it. But Nancy, be careful. If you're right about him, don't try to face this on your own." "Thank you," Mom murmured before hanging up. I heard the quiet sigh she let out, the kind that says you're holding in too much. She didn't know I was awake listening. That night, something felt off. Mom must have felt it too, because when she jolted upright in bed, I was already halfway to waking up. The whole room was dark except for a faint golden glow from the street lamp outside, slipping between the curtains. The air was still, but too still, like the whole house was holding its breath. Mom turned to check on me. I pretended to be asleep. Her gaze stayed on me for a long moment before she exhaled and turned back. And then, click, a sound downstairs so faint it could have been nothing if our house wasn't so quiet. She froze. I could hear her whisper to herself, "Is someone there?" Nothing. Silence swallowed it up. Maybe she imagined it, but just as she started to settle back down, rustle. Closer this time. She was up in seconds. I felt the blanket slip from me as she tucked it gently around my shoulders, then crept out into the hallway. The floor creaked under her steps, and I wanted to call out to tell her not to go alone, but my voice wouldn't come. She moved through the darkness like a shadow herself, down the stairs into the living room. Then everything stopped. I knew something was wrong. Later, she told me the window was wide open, the night wind dancing through the curtains. She hadn't left it like that. Someone had opened it. She grabbed the first thing she could find, a small kitchen knife, and held it like a lifeline. And then the sound that turned her blood to ice. Click. This time it came from my room. She ran. I heard her steps storming up the stairs, and then the door burst open. There he was, Andrew, standing by my window like he had every right to be there, like he belonged. Mom's voice cracked the air like thunder. "What the hell are you doing here?" I sat up, heart racing, barely able to breathe. "Mom." Andrew didn't even flinch. He turned toward us, calm and cool, that twisted smile crawling up his face. "Relax, Nancy. I was just checking on Maya. How did you get in here?" He gave a lazy shrug. "Window was open." "You think I'm buying that?" she snapped. "You need to leave, now." But he didn't move. "You're blowing this way out of proportion. I haven't done anything." Mom stepped between us, knife still clutched in her hand. "I want you out of my house." He looked at her with this smirk that made my skin crawl. "And you think you can get rid of me just like that?" I clung to Mom's shirt so tight my fingers ached. "Mom." She held me tighter, like she could shield me from everything, even him. Her voice shook, but she stood her ground. "I don't know what you want, Andrew, but if you don't leave this second, I'm calling the police." He laughed low and amused. "Really?" And what would you tell them? That I came by to say hello? You're not our friend, she said. That made him stop smiling just for a second. Then he looked straight at me. Maya doesn't seem to feel that way. My heart dropped. No, I said, barely able to speak. I don't want you here. I don't want you coming back. He stared at me just for a moment like he wasn't used to hearing no. Then his face shifted back into that same smug grin. All right, Nancy, I'll go. But just as he stepped through the door, he paused and whispered, but I'll be back. The room felt like it had been drained of air. Mom stood there motionless until the front door slammed shut. Only then did she breathe. Only then did I. She sat down on the bed, pulling me close against her. Her hands were still shaking. Sweetheart, I need you to tell me what's going on. I couldn't look at her. I didn't want to say it. She lifted my chin gently, her eyes locked on mine. Please, Maya. I can't protect you if I don't know the truth. I bit my lip so hard it almost bled. My eyes were hot and blurry with tears. He came over more than once. When you were gone, I whispered. I saw Mom stiffen like someone had poured ice down her spine. Why didn't you tell me, sweetheart? I looked down at my socks. My voice shook. He said, if I told you, you'd get hurt. She froze, her hand clenched against my back. He threatened you. I nodded, and the tears just wouldn't stop. They kept coming, like all the fear I'd been bottling up finally broke through. She pulled me close, her arms wrapping around me like a fortress. I could feel her trembling. No one will ever hurt you again. I swear to you, Maya. The next morning, I stayed home while she went out. She didn't tell me where she was going, but I had a feeling. She came back, smelling like coffee and wind, her expression heavy and hard. Later, I learned she met James at a small cafe down on Franklin Avenue, the one near the bookstore she used to take me to on Saturdays. He's a police officer, and he's known her forever. She told him everything. About the nights, about Andrew, about me. James was quiet for a long time, then finally said he'd look into it. But he also told her to be careful. That was the part that scared me the most because even the police sounded scared. Mom told me that no matter what, she'd keep me safe. But when she came home and saw me curled up on the couch, knees pulled tight against my chest, I could tell how badly she wanted to fix everything right then and there. Come here, baby, she said, kneeling in front of me. I stood and walked to her, but my legs felt like paper. Her hand landed softly on my shoulder. I won't let anything happen to you. Do you understand me? I nodded, but the fear wouldn't leave. What if he comes back? I whispered. What if he already has a plan? She squeezed my hand tighter. He won't. Not as long as I'm breathing. Then knock, knock, knock. We both jumped. I grabbed her waist and held on tight. My breath caught in my throat. She hesitated, then walked toward the door, like every step was a test of courage. Maybe it was James, I thought. Maybe he came to say he'd taken care of everything. But when the door opened, my heart nearly stopped. It was him, Andrew. He stood there like he always did with that smile that didn't reach his eyes. Only this time, something darker flickered behind his stare. Evening, Nancy. Can we talk for a moment? Mom instantly stepped in front of me like a human shield. You've got some nerve showing up here. He gave a lazy shrug. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I just want to clear the air. There's nothing to talk about, she snapped, gripping the doorknob so hard her knuckles turned white. You are not allowed near my daughter again. He chuckled. Nancy, you can't really forbid me. Not legally. You don't have that kind of power. I said, get out. His smile vanished. You're making this worse than it needs to be. If you keep pushing, things are gonna get messy. That's when I grabbed Mom's shirt again. Mom. I could barely breathe the word. Her hands clenched into fists. Leave, or I call the police right now. He laughed like she'd told a joke. And tell them what? That I dropped by to chat. That's not illegal. He leaned forward slightly, his voice colder than winter. You can't stop me, Nancy. I saw something in Mom's eyes change. Right then, something fierce and wild. She didn't hesitate. With all her strength, she shoved him backward out the door. Get out. Now. He stumbled back, caught off guard, but kept his balance. His face twisted, no longer smug, just furious. He lunged toward her arm, reaching fast, and I screamed, but she didn't flinch. She punched him, right in the face, thud. He staggered backward, hand clutching his cheek, eyes burning. You'll regret that, he hissed. Then he turned and stalked down the hall, but before he disappeared into the shadows, he spun around and glared at her. I'll be back, Nancy, and next time, it won't be this easy. Then the door slammed, and silence dropped like a stone. I was still shaking when I asked her, Mom, is he really coming back? She knelt down right in front of me and gently lifted my face with both hands. Her eyes were tired, but steady. No, baby, I won't let him. I wanted to believe her so badly, but everything still hurt inside. My nose was stuffy and my cheeks were burning from crying. Why is he doing this to me? My voice cracked. Did I do something wrong? Her arms wrapped around me so tightly it felt like they could keep the whole world away. No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm so sorry I didn't see it sooner. I nodded against her shoulder, but I was still trembling. I don't think I've ever been so scared in my life. I could feel something shift in her then, like she made a decision right there and wasn't going to back down. The next morning, she went to meet James again. Their spot was this cozy cafe down by the corner of Main and Willow, the one with the brick walls and old jazz music playing low in the background. When he saw the faint bruise on her arm, his whole face changed. Did Andrew do that? He asked, voice tight. No, Mom said with a strained smile. I was defending myself. James exhaled through his nose. He's not backing off, is he? She shook her head. No, and I know he won't. James leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. Then he reached into his bag and pulled out a thin manila folder. Nancy. I looked into his history. There's some stuff you need to see. She took the file, hands already trembling. He was investigated for child molestation before. It never went to trial. Not enough evidence. A cold shiver ran down her spine. I could almost feel it from across town. So he's done this before? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. James nodded. Yeah, but this time, we're not letting it slide. She gripped the folder like it was a weapon. I'm not letting him near Maya. Not ever again. When she got home, I was on the couch with Mr. Honeybear, my old teddy bear with one ear chewed from our dog that ran away when I was 6. I hugged it so tight my arms ached. Mom sat beside me, brushing a hand through my hair like she used to when I had bad dreams. Maya, she said softly, we need to talk. I looked up, my eyes still sore. Okay, I've talked to the police. They're going to protect us. I didn't answer right away. My voice felt buried under all the fear. Finally, I whispered, but what if he comes back? She took a breath, like it was the deepest breath in the world. If he does, I won't let him walk away this time. She looked me straight in the eyes, her voice low but strong. No one will ever hurt you again. Not while I'm here. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her and slowly nodded. And in that moment, I believed her, even if just a little. That night, she didn't sleep. I could hear the faint tapping of the keyboard from the hallway. She was watching the cameras James had helped her set them up all over the house. One for the front door, one in the living room, one in the hallway by my bedroom. She sat in front of her laptop, barely blinking. Every creak in the floorboards made her shoulders tighten. Then her phone buzzed. She snatched it up like it was a lifeline. "Any updates?" she asked. "I went deeper into his background," James said. "He's got prior accusations, molesting minors. Cases were dropped, but it's all there. It's who he is." Her voice dropped. "So he's done it before?" "Yes. You need to be extremely careful. I've submitted a formal report, but it takes time. If he shows up, don't try to deal with him alone. Call me. I can't just sit around and wait for him to hurt her again, and you shouldn't. But Nancy, he's dangerous." She gripped the phone tight. "I'm not letting him touch my daughter. Not ever again. Promise me. If anything happens, you call." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "All right." She hung up the screen of the laptop, still glowing. The house was silent. But then, she saw him, standing right there on the surveillance feed. Outside the house, Andrew. His hand was already on the doorknob, and he was staring straight into the camera. Then slowly, he turned the handle. The door wasn't locked. Mom shot out of the chair, bolting through the hall, trying to get there in time. But before she could reach it, click, the front door swung open. He was inside. She froze, her heartbeat like thunder. He stepped in with that same smirk, only colder this time. "Hello, Nancy," he said, voice smooth and icy. "Told you I'd be back." "Get out of our house," Mom screamed, her voice cracking with rage. But he didn't stop. Andrew stepped forward like he owned the air around him. "You're being dramatic," he said, calm like a serpent. "I just want to talk to Maya, just for a second." "What makes you think you have that right?" Mom's voice shook with fury. He smiled, then that awful smug smile I'd seen too many times. "You don't understand. Maya and we have a connection." I felt my stomach turn, just hearing it. Mom's whole body tensed. "You're disgusting," she spat. "You'll never get near her." "Oh, really?" he said, and suddenly he lunged and grabbed her arm. She shoved him back with everything she had. "Get out." I woke to the sound of shouting. My heart thundered as I scrambled out of bed, running toward the commotion. "Mom." His eyes found me like a spotlight. "Maya, come here, sweetheart." My blood ran cold. "No, I don't want to. I don't want to see you." I hid behind my mom, clutching her arm. She didn't hesitate. Her hand whipped through the air and landed on his face, hard. The slap echoed through the room. "You'll never get near her again," she growled. He staggered, rage blazing in his eyes. "You think you can stop me, Nancy?" He launched forward and grabbed her by the throat. "No!" I screamed, my body frozen in panic. "Let my mom go." Mom thrashed in his grip, reaching blindly. Her hand found the table lamp. With one desperate swing, crack, she smashed it over his head. He stumbled back, blood dripping from his forehead. "Run, baby," she shouted, yanking me toward the stairs. "Run!" We sprinted down the steps, a blur under our feet. But the front door wouldn't budge. Locked. From the inside. Mom spun around, eyes wild, searching. "The keys, where are the keys?" Heavy footsteps thundered behind us. He was coming. She grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the kitchen. "The window will get out the back." But then his hand snatched my hair. I screamed, "Mom, help me." She turned, her scream bursting from her throat. "Let her go!" She charged at him, clawing at his arm. He slapped her across the face so hard I heard her skull hit the floor. She didn't move. I dropped to my knees, sobbing uncontrollably. "Mom, bang, 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 open up, police." Our neighbors must have heard everything. Andrew's eyes went wild. He backed away from me, panic taking over. Bang! The front door exploded open. James stormed in, followed by 2 officers, guns raised, hands where I can see them. "Get on the ground now." Andrew turned to run, but James tackled him straight to the floor. I ran to my mom, throwing my arms around her. "Mom, he was gone. Tell me he's gone." She held me tight, her voice breaking with tears. "It's okay now, baby. It's over." They cuffed him. His face had gone pale, but his eyes were still filled with hate. James stood over him and growled, "You're gonna pay for this, you sick bastard." Andrew didn't say a word, just stared as they dragged him out. But even though he was in handcuffs, I couldn't stop shaking. I couldn't stop seeing him, feeling him. Mom felt it too, I could tell. Her arms wrapped around me like a shield as the red and blue lights flashed across the living room walls. "Mom," I whispered, still crying. "They really arrested him, right?" She leaned down, brushing the tears from my face. "Yes, honey. He can't hurt us anymore." I buried my face in her shoulder, gripping her like I'd never let go. James walked over quietly, his hand warm on Mom's shoulder. "We've got him. But Nancy, I'll need you to come down to the station to make a full statement." She let out a long, tired breath. "Okay, but what about Maya?" A gentle voice called from the doorway. "She can stay with me." It was Mrs. Rosa, our neighbor. She stood there in her nightgown, worry lining her face, hands outstretched toward me. "The girl needs sleep. I'll watch over her." Mom turned eyes glassy. "Thank you, Mrs. Rosa. Thank you so much." I didn't want to let go of her hand. I gripped it like it was the last solid thing in the world. "You're not going to be gone long, right?" Mom crouched down, brushing the hair from my eyes. Her touch soft, but her face tired. "Not long, sweetie, I promise." I nodded slowly, but something inside me still clung to doubt. "You have to come back to me." She kissed my forehead and whispered, "I will." Then she stood and turned toward the door. Her back was straight, but I knew it was taking everything she had not to fall apart. At the police station, she sat in this cold, windowless room under flickering fluorescent lights, across from a man named Inspector Smith. He looked like someone who'd seen too much in his life. James sat beside her, quiet but steady. "Can you walk us through everything Nancy Smith asked?" folding his hands over a thick file. Mom kept her fingers laced together, knuckles white. He'd been targeting Maya for a while, and I didn't see it, not until it was almost too late. Smith gave a quiet nod. "Tell me everything, from the beginning." So she did, starting from when I first began acting strangely, how she found Andrew in my room, what happened that night, and how he tried to strangle her while I screamed for help. Smith took notes fast, barely looking up. "Is there anyone who can confirm this?" Mom nodded. "Maya and our neighbor, Mrs. Rosa." She heard me screaming. "She was the one who called the police," James added. "And I've got his file. Andrew's record includes a past investigation involving children. No charges ever stuck, lack of evidence." Smith went silent for a beat, then said, "This time we make sure he doesn't walk free." Mom's hands trembled in her lap. "I don't want him getting another chance. With anyone." Smith nodded firm. "We're going to do everything we can. He's not walking away from this." When Mom came back to Mrs. Rose's house, I was asleep on the couch, curled up with Mr. Honeybear. She sat next to me and gently ran her fingers through my hair, just like she used to when I had fevers as a kid. Mrs. Rosa handed her a cup of tea, the steam curling like breath into the quiet room. "How'd it go?" Mom pressed her fingers to her temple. "They're investigating, but I'm still scared." Mrs. Rosa sat beside her, her voice low and kind. "It's going to take time, Nancy, for both of you." Mom's voice wavered. Do you ever wonder if I failed her? If I'm a bad mother? Mrs. Rosa looked her straight in the eyes. No one could have seen this coming. You did everything to keep her safe. But I let it happen. In our own home. Mrs. Rosa placed her hand gently over Mom's. What matters is you stopped it. You protected her. And now you have to be strong for her again. Mom nodded, but I think her heart was still breaking. The next morning the phone rang. James. Nancy. He said, his voice heavier than usual. We just finished searching Andrew's place, and you need to hear this. Her heart started to pound. What did you find? He took a breath. Photos. Lots of them. Of Maya. He's been watching her for a long time. My mom went still. What some of the pictures were taken at school, the park, your backyard, even outside your front door. We're not sure exactly how long, but based on the timestamps, it's been over a year. She nearly dropped the phone. How could I not see it? Don't do that to yourself, Nancy. He's good at hiding in plain sight, but we've got more than enough now to build a solid case. We're going to make sure he stays locked up. She stared at the wall, her fists clenched. I want to testify. I want to face him in court and make sure he pays. James was quiet for a moment. Then, all right, we'll fight this. All the way. But that night, just when she thought it was over, the sound of my scream shattered the silence. She burst into my room and found me sitting up in bed, shaking so hard I couldn't speak, my face pale and soaked in tears. Maya, what is it? I saw him. I sobbed. He was at the window. He was looking at me. She ran to the window and threw it open. Nothing. Just the quiet hum of street lamps and shadows of trees swaying in the wind. She pulled me into her arms, holding me so close I could feel her heartbeat against mine. It's okay, baby. He's gone. He's under arrest. No one can hurt you now. But I didn't believe it. And I don't think she did either. Because the nightmare wasn't over. Not really. Not for her. Not for me. I wasn't the same little girl anymore, the one who used to dance around the living room barefoot making up songs about the moon. That girl was gone. And the silence in the room told me Mom knew it too. Since that day, everything changed inside me. I didn't talk much anymore, and even the sound of the floor creaking or the wind against the window made me flinch. Nighttime was the worst. I couldn't sleep alone, not even for a minute. So Mom let me stay in her bed, holding me close, while her hand gently smoothed through my hair, like she was trying to soothe the fear out of me. I'm right here, sweetheart, she whispered in that soft voice she used when I was little. No one can hurt you now. I grabbed the sleeve of her shirt like it was a rope keeping me from falling. But what if he comes back? She squeezed my hand tight. He won't. He's behind bars. But my voice cracked. Mom, I still see him. I felt her whole body go still. Where do you see him, Maya? I stared at the shadows dancing on the ceiling, in my dreams, and sometimes even when I opened my eyes. That's when she took me to see someone, a therapist named Dr. Martinez. Her office smelled like cinnamon and pine wood. She had kind eyes and a voice so soft it felt like wind through leaves. Hi, Maya, she said as she crouched down in front of me. Can you tell me what's been scaring you? I didn't say anything. I just held onto Mom's hand like a secret. I didn't want to say it out loud. I didn't want to go back there. Mom leaned down beside me. It's okay, baby. She just wants to help. My voice barely made it past my lips. I don't want to remember. Dr. Martinez didn't push. She just smiled gently. That's okay. Would you like to draw instead? Sometimes pictures are easier than words. I hesitated, then reached for the pencil. Mom sat with me watching as the lines formed on the paper, and when I was done, her breath caught. I'd drawn a man, him, Andrew, but it wasn't just that. His eyes were empty, pitch black, no whites, no pupils, just shadows. Watching me. He's still there, I whispered, still watching. That night I screamed myself awake. No, don't touch me. Mom flew into the room, grabbing my shoulders. Maya, it's me. It's just Mom. I was shaking, soaked in sweat, tears streaming down my face. He was here. I swear he was here. She pulled me into her arms, rocking me gently. It's okay. It was just a dream. But I shook my head hard. It wasn't a dream. He was right there, by the window. She turned to look. There was nothing but the night outside. But when she looked at me, I could tell she was scared too. She held me tighter and whispered into my hair, "No one will ever hurt you again. I promise." But even she knew promises couldn't fix everything. The next morning, she sat in the kitchen with her head in her hands. She looked so tired, like her bones were heavy with sadness. Mrs. Rosa came in and placed a warm cup of tea in front of her. "You look worn out, Nancy." Mom nodded slowly, her voice hoarse. "I don't know what else to do. I've done everything." And she's still afraid. She's still not okay. Mrs. Rosa sat beside her and reached for her hand. "Maya went through something horrible. It'll take time." Mom's head dropped onto the table. "But she can't sleep. She jumps at everything. What if she never gets better?" Mrs. Rosa's voice was gentle but firm. "You are a good mother, Nancy. You did everything you could. This isn't your fault." Mom took a breath, but I knew it still felt like her fault. It always did. A few days later, after refusing to go anywhere for what felt like forever, I told her, maybe we could go out, just for a little while. We walked through the park hand in hand. The sun was out, but the world still felt gray to me. I kept my eyes moving, scanning every face, every tree. My fingers never let go of hers. "How are you feeling, Maya?" she asked softly. I looked up for a second, then down again, still scared. She gave my hand a gentle squeeze. "That's okay, baby. I'm right here." I nodded but didn't let go. Then a voice called out from behind us, "Maya, you're back." I froze. Mom turned and I peeked over to see Marcus. He used to sit next to me in school. He looked worried. "Are you okay?" he asked, stepping closer. I didn't answer, just kept my head down. He looked at Mom, whispering, "She doesn't want to talk to anyone, does she?" Mom gave him a small smile. "She just needs time." Marcus nodded. "I missed you, Maya. If you ever want to talk, I'll be around." I looked up and met his eyes, just for a second. Then I nodded, and something tiny sparked inside me. It didn't burn bright, but it was there. Hope. That night, Mom sat at the edge of my bed, watching me sleep like she was waiting for the sky to fall. And then she picked up her phone. I saw her fingers tremble as she dialed James. She wasn't going to let me live in fear forever. She was ready to fight. For me. For real. "James." "I need your help," Mom said into the phone, her voice calm but carved out of steel. "What is it, Nancy?" he asked. She drew in a deep breath. "I want to see a lawyer. I want to make sure Andrew never gets out." There was a pause. Then his voice came back lower this time. "Are you sure?" Her grip on the phone tightened. I could see it from across the room, how her fingers curled, how her jaw clenched like she was biting down on fury. "I'm sure. I'll fight until the very end to protect my daughter." James didn't argue. "Okay. I'll set it up for tomorrow." She hung up and looked at me. Just sat there for a second, like she was memorizing my face. I didn't say anything. I just watched her and wondered what it would be like to not be scared all the time. But even if I didn't say it out loud, I knew she'd go to war for me, no matter what it cost her. 3 days passed. I still barely spoke. I didn't know how to explain the storm in my chest. We sat at the table one morning, the sunlight barely creeping through the blinds, Mom trying to make it feel like normal. "Want pancakes?" she asked, stirring cocoa in front of me. "With honey, I remember how much you used to love them." I shook my head and stared down at my mug. She folded her hands in her lap, her smile thin and trembling. "You can tell me anything, Maya. You know that, right? I'll always listen." I bit my lip and traced circles on the table with one finger, then asked, "If I tell you something, will you hate me?" Her eyes went wide, breath catching in her chest. "Never. No matter what you say, I'll love you always." I looked up and whispered, "I have a secret." Her whole body tensed, but she nodded gently. "I'm listening, sweetheart." I looked down at my shirt, fidgeting with the hem. "Andrew didn't just come over once." She blinked. "What do you mean? He came a lot," I said, barely able to breathe. "Even when you were still home." It was like the air got sucked out of the room. Her voice came out hollow. "Say that again." Tears spilled down my cheeks as I dropped my head to the table. He kept finding ways to be near me. He sent me messages. Said if I didn't listen to him, he'd hurt you. She sat there frozen pale as snow, like the world had cracked underneath her. "How long, Maya?" she asked, her voice raw. "About a year," I whispered. She stared at me like her heart was breaking in slow motion. "Why didn't you tell me? I was scared," I cried. "He said he'd take everything away. He said you'd get hurt. I didn't want you to hate me. I didn't want you to leave." She wrapped her arms around me like she was trying to hold together the pieces of my soul. "I'll never leave you. Never." The next morning, we went to a law office. Mom James and a woman named Attorney Harris sat in a room with big leather chairs and thick files stacked on the table. Harris listened quietly, nodding, as Mom laid out everything. Then she said, "We have a solid case. Based on this, we can bring serious charges against him. I want him punished." Mom said, her voice like iron. "We'll need Maya to testify," Harris added carefully. "Can she do that?" Mom hesitated. I was still scared of everything, even my own reflection. James placed a hand on her shoulder. "If Maya speaks up, her testimony will be the most powerful thing in this case." Mom nodded slowly. "I'll talk to her." That night, she sat beside me on the bed. I was curled up in my blankets, staring at the ceiling like it might whisper answers. She gently took my hand. "Sweetheart, I need to ask you something." I looked at her, scared, tired, but listening. "We're going to take him to court, but to do that, I need you to testify." I froze. My fingers tightened around the blanket. "But I'm scared." She stroked my hair, brushing it behind my ear. "I know, baby, I know, but if we don't stand up to him, he could do this to someone else. We have to stop him." I stayed quiet for a long time. I could hear the wind outside brushing against the glass. Then I looked up. "If I do this, he'll never come back." Mom's eyes were fierce. "No, he won't, and I'll be right next to you every second." I closed my eyes, squeezed her hand, and said it. "I'll do it." She smiled through tears. "I'm so proud of you, Maya." The day of the trial came. I sat in the courtroom on the witness stand, my hands folded tight, like I was trying to keep myself from shaking apart. But I was ready, and I wasn't alone. The judge looked down at me from the bench, his voice calm but heavy. "Maya, can you tell us what happened?" I could feel every eye in the courtroom on me, but I kept my focus on one thing, Mom. She was sitting there on the edge of her seat, not breathing, her eyes locked onto mine. I took a deep breath, my chest tight. and even though my voice shook, I forced the words to come out. He came near me more than once, I said. He told me if I ever said anything, something bad would happen to my mom. The room fell silent. You could hear nothing but the sound of the ceiling fan and my own heartbeat thumping in my ears. Andrew was across the room, his stare like a fire I didn't want to look into. James sat beside Mom, and I saw his jaw tighten, his hands balled into fists. I was really scared, I said, swallowing the lump in my throat, but I don't want to be scared anymore. Mom started crying, not loud, just silent tears rolling down her cheeks. The judge gave me a small nod, his voice low and kind. Thank you, Maya. That was very brave of you. Attorney Harris laid out everything, every photo the police found, every note, every shred of our truth. Mom's voice, my voice. Our fear turned into testimony. When the judge finally spoke again, his words landed like thunder. Andrew Lawson is hereby sentenced to 15 years in prison for harassment and unlawful entry. The gavel came down. Mom stood up and pulled me into her arms, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. But I didn't want to be anywhere else. You did it, sweetheart, she whispered into my hair, her tears falling against my cheek. For the first time in months, I smiled. Not big, but real. He's not coming back. Right, Mom? Never, she said, wrapping her arms around me tighter. The nightmare had ended, but healing was just beginning. Mom stood by the living room window later that week, staring up at a sky that seemed clearer than it had in a long time. I was curled up on the couch, a book open in my lap, though I hadn't read a word. I still felt that fear sometimes, like it could sneak in through the walls. But when she walked over and sat beside me, I felt a little steadier. Hey, she said, brushing a hand through my hair. It's a beautiful day. Want to go for a walk? I hesitated, then gave a small nod. She smiled, and her voice softened. I promise, wherever you go, I'll be right there with you. The first time we went back to the beach, I didn't know how to feel. The ocean smelled the same, the waves still whispered like they always had, but I wasn't the same girl who used to laugh here. I stood at the shoreline, watching the tide come in salt air, tugging at my hair. Mom walked up beside me. Want to splash around a little, she asked gently. I bit my lip. Last time we were here, we built a sandcastle. Remember? Of course, she said. It was the most beautiful sandcastle I've ever seen. I took off my sandals and let my feet sink into the warm sand. It didn't erase everything, but for the first time in a while, I felt light, just a little. A few days later, Mom took me somewhere new, a support group at a small community center not far from home. I clung to her hand as we walked in. The room was soft and warm, with folding chairs arranged in a circle. Other women were already sitting, and a few kids my age. Everyone looked nervous like I felt. A woman with short gray-streaked hair and a kind smile walked over. Hi, Maya. I'm Rosa. I'll be guiding the group. You don't have to say anything today. Just listen. Everyone here knows what it's like to be afraid. I nodded, but didn't let go of Mom's hand. We sat down together. A young woman named Valerie started speaking, her voice calm. There was a time when I didn't think I'd ever stop being scared. But then I realized I wasn't alone. I looked up, just for a moment. I didn't speak, but something inside me listened. Mom leaned close and whispered, "See, baby, we're not alone." I didn't answer, but I think she saw it in my eyes that something had shifted. That night after dinner, Mom sat at the kitchen table with her laptop open. She stared at her work contract for a long time. Then she picked up her phone and dialed. "Hello, Mr. Hughes," she said. "It's Nancy. I'm calling to formally resign." There was a pause on the other end. Then a man's voice said, "Nancy, are you sure you're one of our best?" She took a breath. "I'm sure. My daughter needs me, and nothing's more important than that." When Mom hung up the phone, I saw something shift in her, like a weight had finally lifted off her shoulders. Her boss had said, "I understand. I wish you and your daughter all the best." And that was it. That was the moment I knew from now on she was going to be right here, not on business trips or conference calls, just here, with me. We were making dinner together one evening, cutting vegetables, the sound of sizzling oil filling the kitchen, when something inside me bubbled up and spilled out before I could stop it. "Mom, thank you for saving me." She turned, startled. I think she hadn't expected it, not yet, maybe not ever. But I smiled at her, not the kind of smile that's just to be polite, but a real one. Warm, true, hers. She dropped the spatula and knelt beside me, wrapping her arms around me like she was trying to keep the universe from stealing me away again. "I'll always protect you, Maya. I swear it." And for the first time in what felt like years, I believed her. I hugged her back tightly, and something inside me started to thaw. Far away from our little kitchen, Andrew sat in a concrete box with nothing but metal cold air and silence. He stared at the chipped paint on the cell wall like it held answers, but no one was coming to help him. No friends, no family, no one. The door creaked open behind him. A broad-shouldered man stepped in tattoos, wrapped around his arms like chains. A sneer stretched across his face. "So you're that guy," he said. "The one who hurts kids." Andrew's skin drained of color. "No, I didn't. You think anyone in here believes that the man laughed to sound colder than winter? In here, people like you are bottom of the food chain." Before Andrew could move, the man grabbed him by the shirt and slammed him back against the wall. 15 years, buddy. Plenty of time to think about what you did." Andrew didn't scream. He couldn't. He just crumpled, and as the door clanged shut behind them, he knew that prison was just the beginning of his punishment. The real hell had only just begun. But back in the world where the sun still shone and the ocean still sang, Mom took me to the beach one morning, the same stretch of sand where we used to build sandcastles and pretend we were queens of some distant magical land. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The sea breeze smelled like salt and freedom. "Mom," I said quietly, "I think I'm ready. I want to go back to normal life." Her eyes lit up like sunrise. "I knew you could," she whispered. I reached for her hand and held it tight. "I love you." She pulled me into her arms and held me like I was her whole world. And maybe I was, because that's what it felt like we'd made it out of the storm, and now finally we were standing in the light again. 3 months after the trial, we were learning how to be okay again. Life was quiet, but peaceful. That morning, Mom walked me back to school, the same old building with red bricks and the flag waving high above the playground. I hadn't been here in so long. My fingers curled around hers like I was 6 years old again. "What if I can't do it?" I whispered. She knelt down in front of me, her hands on my shoulders. "You can do it, Maya. You're stronger now than you've ever been." I bit my lip, then nodded. From across the yard, I saw Marcus, my friend from before everything fell apart. His eyes lit up when he saw me. "Maya, you're back." I flinched. But then something in me said, "It's okay now." I smiled, just a little. "Yeah," I said, "I'm back." He held out his hand. I hesitated, then placed mine in his. And Mom, standing just behind me, had this look on her face like her heart had sprouted wings. Meanwhile, Andrew had no name anymore. Just a number on a uniform, a number on a record, a ghost inside a system that had no mercy for people like him. One afternoon in the prison dining hall, he sat hunched over a tray of bland food, hoping no one would notice him. But someone always noticed. A man walked over, tall, solid, tattooed, with scars and stories. He dropped his tray with a loud clang and stared down at Andrew. "You know what you are," he growled. "You're filth." Andrew looked up, fear already burning in his eyes. I didn't." The man slammed a fist straight into his jaw. Thud. Andrew hit the floor. The room erupted into laughter that wasn't kind. It was mocking, sharp, cruel. And as he lay there bleeding, he finally realized justice wasn't just a sentence. It was a life he could never get back. Andrew clutched his face, groaning in pain, and for the first time, I think he realized what it meant to truly lose. He would never again hurt another girl, never again whisper threats behind closed doors. That was his punishment, and it was exactly what he deserved. One evening, Mom got a call while she was folding laundry. I sat across the room watching the soft smile spread across her face as she answered. "Nancy, the voice said we were wondering if you'd be willing to speak at our upcoming event. Your story, it could help so many women." For a moment, she didn't say anything, just stared out the window, her hand frozen on a towel. Then she said quietly, "It would be an honor." On the day of the event, she stood in front of a room full of women, some broken, some healing, all carrying pain they couldn't always name. She took a breath, her hands not shaking at all. I used to think that loving my daughter meant working hard, providing everything she needed, but I didn't see the danger that was already living inside our home. I trusted someone I never should have, but I've learned something important. It's never too late to stand up and protect the people you love. As she spoke, I saw a young woman in the audience burst into tears. She stood up, her voice trembling. Do you think I can do it too? I have a daughter, and I've made so many mistakes. I'm afraid it's too late for me." Mom stepped down from the stage and took the woman's hand gently, like she already knew her. "We all make mistakes," she said. "But if you're still here, still willing to fight, then it's not too late. You can still save her. I saved mine." The room went still. Then came the applause, soft at first, and then louder. That day, I realized my mom hadn't just saved me. She'd found a new purpose, helping other women fight the monsters in their shadows. That night, I stood at the doorway to my room, staring at the bed like it was a mountain I wasn't sure I could climb. Mom walked up beside me, her hand landing on my shoulder with that familiar warmth. "Do you want me to sleep with you tonight?" she asked. I thought about it. Then I shook my head. "It's okay, Mom. I think I'm ready." Her eyes filled with tears, but she smiled and said, "I'm proud of you, Maya." I smiled back. And then I walked into my room alone and closed the door. It was a small thing, but it felt like a victory. The next morning, we took a walk by the ocean. The tide was low, and the sky was painted in soft golds and pinks. I closed my eyes and let the sea breeze hit my face like freedom. "How do you feel?" she asked softly beside me. I opened my eyes, smiled, and whispered, "Free." She took my hand and squeezed it tight. "We made it, Maya. The worst is behind us. From now on, it's just joy." I nodded, gripping her hand tighter, watching the sun rise over the water. We had survived. We had won. And now, we were finally ready to live. What happened to me doesn't define me. What defines me is how I rose from it with my mother's strength beside me. Our story is a reminder that the people who hurt you can be defeated, that trust must be earned, and danger can wear the face of someone familiar. But if you act when you see the signs, if you stand up and speak out, you can stop the cycle. You can heal. You can take your life back. I found courage because my mother never gave up on me, and she found her calling in helping others stand back up too. Justice doesn't always come quickly, but it comes. And no one should ever have to live in fear. If our story touched you, I hope you'll share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you'd like more stories like this, we'd be honored if you gave us a like or followed along. Your support helps us shine light on the truth one story at a time. Thank you for being here. We'll see you soon.